Hey, Foot Clan, before we start today's show, I got to tell you about Harry's Razors. Look, they are so confident in the quality of their blades that they're going to send you a free trial set. And this trial set comes with a razor, a 5-blade cartridge, shaving gel. It is free if you go sign up for a shave plan. You just pay for the shipping. So you go to harrys.com and you use the code Footballers, and if you use that code Footballers, they're going to throw in a free post-shave balm with the free trial set. That's harrys.com, code Footballers.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, coming to you from the FantasyJocks.com studios with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Welcome to the show, the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Jason, Mike, and Andy back again.
How's it going, everybody? I hope you avoided any Thursday landmines.
I hope that you had the Thursday explosions.
Sure.
I think I tweeted what's orange and has 4 heads and no hope. And I was referencing the Creamsicles backfield.
What are they doing with their running backs?
You don't, I mean, we saw this in New York last year. You don't find rhythm and success by giving 4 running backs 3 carries each. You
also don't find success. I mean, look,
against Cincinnati.
Well,
on the road.
Regardless of that, having Damien Williams on there, he was 1 snap away from leading that backfield in snap count. That's not helping your team. It's just a dumb decision.
He was the starter.
If you had to eyeball test the running backs, Pead was so far behind them all. Then it was Williams as the third worst.
He was terrible.
And then it was arguable whether Ajayi or Drake was better.
I'd argue, okay.
Yeah, I'd argue that Drake was probably the best, and Ajayi, he had a couple decent runs. But what can you evaluate when your team is? I mean, the time of possession was disgusting. Anyways, I'll digress for a second. Welcome to the show. We have a great one for you today. We have the rest of the matchups. We have our Daily Dose segment. We have in or out, so we'll let you know about all the fantasy football injuries you need to know about, guys to keep in your lineup, out of your lineup, where things are trending, all the latest news, including breaking down the Josh Gordon news that broke yesterday. So if you don't know about that, stay tuned right here. Listen through the show. We're going to get you all caught up. There are more collars being worn on the show today.
Absolutely.
Looking good.
I guess we'll talk about that later, too.
Sure.
So, so quick question, takeaways from the game last night. I'm going to take the softball here, guys. A.J. Green's pretty good.
He certainly is.
Is that the kind of analysis you expect from this show?
Yeah, well, there were some rumblings in the bushes of the fantasy community. A.J. Green had back-to-back kind of down weeks for A.J. Green. Like, what do I do? He just hold tight.
Hopefully he listened and traded for him.
Yeah, A.J. Green is coming. And he was there with a monster game. Although, I would say for the game that he had, it was a bit of a letdown for me personally, where the Bengals were just, they dominated the ball, like the time of possession, like Andy had said, but all they're doing is kicking field goals. So hopefully you had Mike Nugent on your team.
And I did. It was great. And I hate kickers. And let me just say this. I hope this week I win my fantasy matchup by 1 point with Mike Nugent going off for 19, because I want that other player to be so upset that he should have won but lost because of a kicker that I put very little time or thought or energy into selecting, and it's ridiculous, and get rid of kickers.
Now, Ryan Tannehill went out there, and he made a lot of great throw.
I had Tannehill ranked really low, and then I'm driving. I wasn't able to watch live, and then the first time they get the ball, it's like, 75-yard touchdown bomb to Kenny Stills. I went, oh, no.
You know how close Kenny Stills came to dropping that one, too? That was a juggle job.
He caught it.
Did he get him in the breadbasket?
It was a breadbasket catch, yes. Final vote right here. Creamsicle jerseys. What is your vote?
They were on fire.
So wait.
Those things were awesome.
I gotta translate the Mike lingo. That's good, right?
They were fully lit. That's for the young folk.
Jason, what's your official vote?
I love Color Rush games. I like the craziness of the color. My wife did not like. She wanted somebody to paint the helmets green because she thought they looked like pumpkins. She was like, "Who's the pumpkin team?"
The pumpkins? Yeah,
Sure.
I've heard some different things. Somebody said they reminded them of those circus peanut candies,
which are not for everyone, but they're for this guy.
What candy is
then
not for Jason?
Then you had the white tigers on the other side. So
Yeah.
next week we have the Cardinals and 49ers on Thursday.
So the Niners will be the color. Wait, oh wait, no, the
I
Bengals were home and they
believe
were white.
We might see like a black and white next week. I think we might see like
Interesting.
white 49ers and I can't remember what. I know the Cardinals have a full black jersey.
I hope that the 49ers go with the white because I love the Cardinals when they go full red. I love it.
It won't be full red.
They might. That's what I was saying.
They've already released the jerseys.
Oh, they
They have released all the Nike Color Rush.
I did not know.
You need to do some efforting while I talk about how people can find us on Twitter.
All right.
You can find us at the FF Ballers on Twitter. You can find Jason at JasonFFL. You can find Mike at FF Hitman, and you can find me at Andy Holloway. You can find us on the web at thefantasyfootballers.com, releasing new articles every single day, including Week 3 DFS picks articles, one from Chris Meaney and one from Ben Cummins that are up on the site today. You will also have the second half of our NFL matchups that we'll talk about on today's show will be on the website in article form as well. And don't forget to check out Patreon, our jointhefoot.com community. Become part of the Foot Clan. Communicate, talk, trade chatter, questions, everything you have.
Premium rankings.
Premium projections. We have the actual stat totals for every guy that we believe that they'll put up this week, and we have flex rankings and some bonus fun stuff for you, including a giveaway and things like that, all on jointhefoot.com. And make sure you follow us on Facebook. Like us on Facebook as well. And check us out on iTunes. That's enough instructions for now.
I've gone through all the Color Rush uniforms. The Cardinals are, in fact, all black with the red accent. And I will throw out these two notes. The Seattle Seahawks ones are incredible.
They're the full green,
They're
right?
the full neon green, and they look just amazing.
What are the 49ers? Are they
They're
white?
probably white.
Yeah, I kind of skipped over
I
them.
believe
because I was so dazzled by Seattle, and the Vikings ones are incredible as well.
I believe this year they're
Yeah.
having one team be white
It's for
colorblind.
Wait, so the 49ers look almost identical to the Cardinals.
Well, what they said is every team has a Color Rush jersey, and then there's a white alternative. So if there's ever a colorblind situation, one team will wear the full white.
Well, someone will be in full white.
I hope they're both just black.
Yeah.
And you can't tell who's who.
They're both black and red.
Yeah.
Well,
all right, let's jump into the news.
News and notes from around the league.
I did want to add one thing. Mike will be on Periscope, as he has been thus far this year, on Sunday morning around 9 o'clock, right? Now, that's Pacific time.
Yes.
So noon Eastern time.
Basically 1 hour before kickoff, which everything should still be on schedule for this Sunday. I know there's the London game. So I will not be Periscoping before the London game because that would put it at 5 in the morning for me. As much as I love football and the Foot Clan.
We don't love it that much.
That's not happening.
All right, the big news, guys, yesterday. I know we're not used to Josh Gordon-related news. Decided to enter a rehab facility, will not return to the Browns when first eligible in week number 5. The quote said that after careful thought and deep consideration, decided to step away from pursuing his return to the Browns and his football career to enter an inpatient rehab facility. And so there we are.
I will say this. I think this is a great move. I mean, this
For
to
a
me,
person?
this is positive news. If Josh Gordon is dealing with these demons, these problems, good for you, Josh Gordon, for taking care of it. I mean, clearly it's not good for fantasy players. That really actually sucks that you held him to the point of he's about to come back. But good for you, Josh Gordon. I hope you get better so you can actually come and play and we can watch that.
Yeah, and then the obvious implication here for fantasy relevance is Terrelle Pryor. Andy, I know not only are you super excited about it, and you traded for Terrelle Pryor, but you spent a lot of yesterday going back and watching film and deciding whether or not you believe he will be legitimate or whether this was a one-week wonder. So why don't you tell us what you believe Terrelle Pryor will be this season?
Well, I'll say a couple things first. One, there's a heart emoji in our actual show doc next to Terrelle Pryor's name and me. I didn't put it there, but I fully support the use of that emoji when it comes to Terrelle Pryor. The other thing I'll say is that I don't know if I've seen a team that has bounced between fantasy relevance and irrelevance more than in 3 weeks than the Cleveland Browns. We've seen Okay, you've got RG3 and Pryor hype to start the season. You've got Corey Coleman hype and then injury. You've had Josh McCown. Oh, it makes everybody look better, and then McCown's out. Cody Kessler's behind center, and wait, no, Terrelle Pryor's behind center as well. Here's what I saw from the vast array of highlights that I saw of Terrelle Pryor last week and the way they were utilizing him with Cody Kessler behind center and the Dolphins game. Terrelle Pryor is the center of this offense, an offense that actually did move the ball against the Dolphins, and this week takes on the Washington Redskins in Washington. As long as Corey Coleman is hurt and Josh Gordon is not returning, Hugh Jackson has a history with Terrelle Pryor. Terrelle Pryor had separation on 9/10 of his routes last week against, albeit not great DBs in Miami. But what you saw was volume. And what else can you ask for from a fantasy wide receiver? Now, yesterday I took a gamble in one of our leagues. And I worked a trade where I'm getting rid of Dez and the headache of Dez's injury and when he'll return and what's wrong and Dak Prescott and all of that. And I went and I got Terrelle Pryor. And
there was more to it.
There was much more to the
draft
trade.
Picks back.
Sure. But I was willing to take that risk because here's exactly what I believe about Pryor. Take this to the bank. I tweeted it yesterday. He is a every week startable wide receiver 2 with week-to-week wide receiver 1 upside. That is what I believe about Pryor, and I believe about him from here on out for the remainder of the year. I think he has separated himself. It's been a huge transformation for him. I'm very impressed with Terrelle Pryor. I would go and acquire him. He's on waiver wires in certain leagues still, and if he's not, you can go get him at a bargain. Now, I share the same Brad Evans from Yahoo and I were both talking about Pryor last night together and apart when everybody was asking us. We're buyers. We want to go buy Terrelle Pryor. So that's what I'm buying into. I realize that, not everybody has that opinion, but I think when you can get the guy that also takes snaps at quarterback, who I think will be the Wildcat goal line running back quarterback combo. He ran for a touchdown last week. I just think that there is so much upside because if you complete a few passes, you run a few times, you're already at 8-9 points.
Yeah, we love running backs with volume. Lamar Miller, he's been maybe a little bit disappointing, but you know what he's going to do is touch the ball 15 to 20 times. A wide receiver, you're not sure he's going to touch the ball 10 times. Well, you could be pretty confident right now that Pryor is going to touch the ball that many times, that is fantastic for a wide receiver position.
And Jason brings this up too about the Saints. When you're a team whose defense is not your strong suit, I mean, the Browns are going to give up points. So you have a Jaguars from last year or a Saints situation, even the Colts whose defense hadn't been very great, where you just have opportunities for volume. So that's my take. What do you guys see Pryor rest of season? Do you agree in the wide receiver 2 with week-to-week wide receiver 1 upside?
I agree with that. I think you're going to have most of the time a wide receiver 2 upside of wide receiver 1, but you will get those games, I believe, because it's the Browns offense where, he falls off a little bit. But you're going to get those games with just about any wide receiver out there. AJ Green will have a game where he just disappears, happens every year. So, I agree. I think overall rest of season, he should be valued right now as a wide receiver 2.
Does Josh Gordon return this year?
No, I don't think Josh Gordon ever returns.
Josh Gordon is done in Cleveland. And as far as, so let's address, do you drop Josh Gordon in a redraft league?
Yes. I know yesterday I said, hold on a second.
Yeah.
I can firmly say yes.
Okay.
I would drop him now.
Yeah, cross-the-board agreement here.
All right, Golden Tate, according to Jim Bob Cooter, they said they want to get him more touches as the year goes on.
The touches aren't a problem.
I think the problem is that Golden Tate isn't doing anything with them.
Yeah, that's the problem.
He used to be a yards after the catch guy 2 years ago, and last year it came down a lot. Now you wonder if it's a trend.
He also used to be a down the field guy, and now the yards on target are so short and small. He's getting so many by the line of scrimmage, and I don't know if that's just right now to kind of get him jump started and saying, hey, if we can't get him down the field, let's get him involved in the screen game and maybe get him going. I like the fact that they recognize they need to get him involved. It's 3 weeks into the season. We jump off of guys way too quick. It's nice to hear this news. I definitely would not start Golden Tate until he proves that he's come back. But it makes me, look, if somebody dropped him, this news, I'll pick him up.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, Jason, let me ask you this. I don't understand what happened on the show yesterday. I saw some people tweeting about it. Did you, in jest or in sincerity, recommend starting Stafford over Rodgers this week?
Oh, yeah. No, that was in sincerity. I really, really would. Because as it was pointed out to me, yes, Aaron Rodgers is on bye. And so I just like to be accurate. I want to make sure that my advice is golden, and I would definitely I would have started Ryan Tannehill over Rodgers this week.
See, that's a hot take.
But no, my point was other quality quarterbacks that are playing. I think that you're going to be hard pressed to find one better than Matthew Stafford.
Don't back off the best fantasy advice you've ever given.
Don't back off.
I stand by it.
Texans coach Bill O'Brien is taking over play calling duties. Now, Bill O'Brien ran the offense 2 years ago. Last year handed it to his offensive coordinator. This year he has decided to take the reins back in the upcoming week. Not happy with what the offense did, obviously, against New England, where they struggled immensely. You never know if this is a good situation, a situation that will bring them out of a funk. I would like to see some more creative play calling. So I thought that he was – I called him what did I say, Bill O'Boring last week?
Yep.
It wasn't Bill.
Yes, apology.
So,
I think
no
Bill
apology
O'Brien,
because he
Bill
could have
O'Brien
taken
is a good coach. This I'm going to assume is a good sign in the sense that they were very unhappy with their offense last week, and they're saying we need to make a change and we need to be more offensive minded, and that makes sense with losing the key piece of your defense. Saying, look, if our offense doesn't get it together, we're not going into the playoffs. And so this is good. I'm going to throw a name out there just to pay attention to in case something happens this week with him that you might want to stash him, and that's Tyler Ervin. I thought he was good coming out of college. He fit kind of the Dion Lewis, James White role, and Bill O'Brien was formerly from that type of a system, but they haven't used him at all. So just throwing that
they've used
the deep
him.
Sleeper look.
They've used him on kickoffs, and he was.
Well, yes, he
had an issue.
Yeah.
All right, so we have yet to bring this segment back this year, and so we're going to do it now. We're going to break down all the injuries in this edition of In or Out.
What's it going to be, McFly? Are you in or out?
In or out, Russell Wilson.
In, no
He'll
doubt.
play.
In or out, Jamal Charles.
I lean
I think
out.
he's going to get a couple of snaps.
I think
this
out,
week.
just firmly out.
I lean out.
Tevin Coleman.
The ankle injury, been limited through a couple practices, but I think that he plays.
Yeah, he'll play.
Chris Ivory.
Play.
Chris Ivory's in.
Rashad Jennings.
Ooh.
I think he's going to be out. I think if you got the cast on the hand and it's not working, it doesn't work.
I lean that way as well.
All right, let's move on to wide receivers. Michael Floyd.
Dealing with the concussion. He has cleared the protocol, though, so I believe that he will play. But this could be the game we see John Brown take over or dominate the snaps compared to what it's been.
So that's an in.
Yes.
For both of you.
Yep.
Marvin Jones.
He'll play.
Yeah, it is worth noting because he wasn't injured and then he was on his hamstring, but he will definitely play. Alshon
Jeffrey.
He had a hamstring issue in addition to the knee just added. Man, it is so frustrating to own Alshon. I'm going to say he plays, and I'm going to say he is a good fantasy option this week.
I think he will.
Breaking news, Marvin Jones is practicing on Friday to affirm your earlier
Excellent.
point. Des Bryant.
He will not play.
No way he plays, and he's not going to play for a couple of weeks.
Sammy Watkins.
He will not play. He's still not practicing.
Brandon Marshall.
He will play, and he's going to – Brandon Marshall, I'm struggling with the ranking of Brandon Marshall of the force feeding of targets with Eric Decker, who we're talking about next, I assume. If Eric Decker is out, is Brandon Marshall going to get those massive targets?
If Decker is out, Marshall will be great.
Okay. I think he'll be great either way. Not this week.
This one I want to talk about.
Eric Decker.
Yeah. I am going out, and I've said this from when the news was terrible. I am saying in. Because Eric Decker is one hard SOB. He is out there. I feel like he could break his arm, and he's going to play. But then if he's out, I look like an idiot.
Mohamed Sanu. Mike, do you think Eric Decker's playing?
I do. He's just too tough.
I do, too. Philip Dorsett, by the way, questionable this weekend. The window's starting to close on him being an exciting option because Moncrief will be back in about a month. Dorsett twisted the ankle, listed as questionable. You need to monitor him for the weekend. There might be better options with the injury.
Yeah, well, you know what's fascinating to me is I actually had Dorsett a little bit higher this week. I'm going to monitor and maybe take him out. But you got to keep in mind, he had a good DB on him this last week when he got that number 2 role. He could be kind of a post-type weekly sleeper if he's healthy.
All right, tight ends, Julius Thomas.
It's a game-time decision with the
out
elbow.
Out of your lineup is what I would say, because he plays that London game. It's just so scary to you're going to wake up, forget to check the news. Just find a replacement this week.
Jimmy Graham.
Jimmy Graham, after his monster week, did not practice on Thursday, I believe, or Wednesday. So I think that he's actually going to sit. Today will be a big factor. If Graham doesn't practice today, he's out.
Yeah, I'm going to say in.
Antonio Gates.
I'm going to say he's out with that hamstring.
So Hunter Henry.
Yep. Fire him
Good
up.
play. Good
Delaney
play
Walker.
In.
I'm going to go with in as well.
They need him badly.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, cool. I also one other news that just bit of news that came through. Bryant did not practice to further affirm.
Dez
did not practice
really?
on Friday. Well, I just let
no,
people
that's
know.
good.
I am surprised that Dez has not already been completely ruled out, but maybe that's some gamesmanship. Speaking of games,
that's John Fox.
Yeah, we're gonna
John Fox level.
Yeah,
we're gonna get to the second half of the games. Before we do that, we want to definitely thank a new sponsor of the show, Cricket. Look, if you're watching on the Fantasy Sports Network or on our YouTube channel, you see us looking good today.
Looking sharp.
Looking real nice. I'm a polo shirt guy. I always have been. I like polos. I like golf shirts. And Cricket is a really, really, really nice golf shirt brand. I mean, it's got that kind of feel, that like vintage style golf shirts like Nicholas and Palmer and JFK. It's looking really nice. You got to go check it out, see how we look. And I can tell you firsthand from my experience, it is really nice. They are comfortable. They are soft. You know, it's got a better fit. It's not too baggy, not too skinny. It's got a really nice collar. It's one of those, talking to the Cricket guys, it's that made for hole 19. Like when you're done golfing, you can wear this shirt anywhere.
It's just a really nice polo, and that's Criquet.
Yeah, so and you can get 20% off your first purchase. So please visit cricketshirts.com/footballers and enter the promo code footballers at checkout. Both. So that's Cricket Shirts, CRIQUET shirts.com/footballers. Enter code footballers at checkout. You won't be disappointed. These are really nice golf shirts.
They are very nice. And we also want to take a second to thank ZipRecruiter for supporting this show, for sponsoring this podcast. The last time that I talked about ZipRecruiter on the show, we had some tweets from people that used them and either found a job or found great talent through ZipRecruiter. And basically nowadays, posting your job to just one place to find quality candidates, it doesn't get the job done. You need somebody and a company like ZipRecruiter that can help you post to everywhere that you can post jobs, whether that's social media, 100-plus job sites, places, Facebook and Twitter. Like I said, one click, you can do it on ZipRecruiter. And so you can find candidates any nation, any city, any industry, completely nationwide, high-quality candidates. You don't have to juggle emails and all that type of thing. It makes screening candidates really easy. And so we want you, if you're a business owner, find out why ZipRecruiter has been used by over 1 million businesses. Right now, our listeners can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free by going to ZipRecruiter.com/sportsfan. That's ZipRecruiter.com/sportsfan. One more time, try it for free, ZipRecruiter.com/sportsfan. Check them out, and we thank them for supporting our independent podcast, keeping the things going here. Let's get into the forecast.
Fantasy Forecast.
Okay, let's do it. We've seen one game this week. It's time to talk about the second half of the games we reviewed. You know, if you didn't listen, yesterday's show had the first 6 games, so you could have you can go back and listen to that if you want to catch up on any of the ones you don't hear on today's show. Let's talk about the Browns. I mean, we talked a lot about Pryor, what's happening with Gordon.
So we're done talking about the Browns then.
Yeah.
No way, man.
No, you still got the crow.
Yeah.
I love Michael Keaton.
No. Do you do the I love Michael Keaton?
I don't think you do it on sound effects, no.
I don't know the rules, guys. The Browns travel to Washington to take on the Redskins. Redskins heavy favorites, 8-point favorites at home, 45.5-point over-under. That's because Cody Kessler's the quarterback.
Sure.
And because they're at home. and Cousins has looked better. In fact, I like Cousins a ton this week.
Yes.
I was going in my league of record, I was going to start Cousins over Russell Wilson before I traded Wilson away. So I think Cousins is a great option this week. What do you guys take?
I love it. I love Kirk Cousins this week. He's very high in my rankings. From the Browns side, I love Crowell this week. He was my start of the week. Washington is giving it up to running backs. The Browns running backs, they're averaging 6.1 yards per carry.
That's great.
I mean, that's amazing. A 75-yard run
Hugh Jackson, man.
will surely boost up your yards per carry. But the fact is, Crowell's playing great football, and he's getting the rock a lot. So I love him as a running back 2 start. Pryor, we talked about, he's a must-go. And Barnidge finally got some work last week. I think that he's an okay option of the Barfy tight ends. I think he's a little bit on the top. He's
okay,
a top layer of
Barnidge
the
or Rudolph.
I would go Rudolph.
I'd
this
probably
week.
go Rudolph though.
But
at home.
I want to throw this out there because Crowell has been essentially, seeming like the bell cow running back, and I think that's, those first 2 weeks, Duke Johnson got 3 carries and 3 carries again. Last week, we need to make sure we're not forgetting about Duke Johnson because last week he got 10 carries on the ground, caught 5 receptions. He didn't get a touchdown, but he was still double digits in fantasy. So, pay attention to how that split continues to work out between Crowell and Duke.
Sure.
At the wide receiver position, we talked at length about Pryor. To me, he's a must-start this week. But people are asking lots of different questions about Terrelle Pryor. They're asking, would you drop, certain players for him? Would you drop Forsett for Pryor?
Probably.
Would you drop
Dorset? Yeah, definitely.
Would you drop?
I heard Forsett.
I said Forsett.
Oh, sure.
Forsett or Dorsett?
I would drop them both for Pryor.
Forsett probably, but I mean, whenever you're dropping a running back for a wide receiver, it's got to be team dependent.
Okay, all right. So what about the other side of the ball?
Love Deshaun Jackson. I love him nearly every week, but I think this is a particularly great matchup. The Browns ranked 24th in pass defense at this current moment, and
so would you start Djax over Pryor?
Oh man, that's tough. I would probably go Pryor in that particular head-to-head matchup, but Cousins
we have them 14-17 in the consensus rankings. So Jason has Djax the highest. He has them kind of flip-flopped.
And the thing about just my public service announcement for Kirk Cousins. Week 1 was terrible, and that was everyone got to watch it. So that's kind of the taste that most fantasy players are left with. Kirk Cousins has been perfectly fine. I would venture even good for fantasy purposes since that week. He's had 2 strong weeks. He's over 300 yards basically every single week. They can't run the ball. He's at home against the Browns. Kirk Cousins, I think he's likely in a QB1 moving forward for me.
Kirk Cousins is very highly ranked for all of us this week. The question I have about the Redskins offense is where are the touchdowns going to go? Because there are starting to be a lot of mouths to feed here. You've got Jordan Reed. Hey, maybe this is the week where he is that red zone target. It's been, who the red zone target's been there has been Jamison Crowder, which is surprising.
That's not true.
Well, I'm
He's
saying
getting a lot.
Target-wise,
Targets, yes.
Statistically.
Well, he scored from 75 out or whatever that
Yes.
was.
No, but I'm just saying target inside the red zone.
Okay.
He has been one of the leaders in the NFL, and I don't know that continues season long, but this week, he does his damage out of the slot, and the slot corner for the Browns is pretty terrible. So does it go Crowder? Does it go Djax? Does it go Jordan Reed? There are, even Pierre Garçon. There's going to be value here, but I think you're taking a little bit of a gamble. I'm starting Djax in my league, and it's going to be a boom or bust.
The Lions take on the Bears in Chicago. Bears are 3-point dogs at home, 46.5-point over-under. Look, the Lions defense has allowed 5.5 yards per carry to the running back. Let's talk about Jordan Howard.
Yeah, I like Howard a lot. We all have him as a running back 1, surprisingly. So grab him if he's still available. He's probably not, but he's going to get the volume. We saw him involved in the passing game last week, over 40 yards receiving. Didn't even play the whole game, and he's the guy. I mean, Langford, we know he's out. Kadeem Carey still banged up. Jordan Howard is the man.
And the best thing about Jordan Howard being the man in this situation is that Jordan Howard is very proficient at catching the ball. He's a big back, so you You don't expect him to, but he did it great in college. He's done it well so far in the NFL. So should they get down, should they be in the lead, he's pretty much, I feel like, game flow proof.
Yes.
He's going to be involved. That's why he's a running back 1. So it's not so much of like, hey, if he's still on waivers, pick him up. That's probably past. But if you picked him up, we want to give you the push to start him.
Would you start Spencer Ware or Jordan Howard this week?
Ooh.
If Jamal Charles is out,
What about Char West?
and if both those guys are out, then I would go Spencer Ware because I think he's more talented. But in general, right now as it looks, I've got Jordan Howard a few spots higher.
Now, the hotness off the waiver wire last week was obviously Theo Riddick with Amir Abdullah's injury. You also have Dwayne Washington in the mix there.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about Washington just
Sure,
real quick.
sure. My question to you guys was going to be, which guy do you like more this week, and is that completely league format dependent?
Yes, I'm still going league format dependent. In PPR, it's still Riddick, but I think that Washington against the 31st ranked rushing defense of the Bears, I think he could be a sneaky start. This Lions-Bears game, right? This thing is the lump of coal sitting in the cave where you're just like, I don't know if I want this thing. But there is a pristine diamond of fantasy goodness inside here. There's a lot of players that I like this week for fantasy, which is bizarre.
And
it's very bizarre.
Brian Hoyer at quarterback is known for disgusting you with your eyeballs, but ending up with 350 yards somehow.
Yep.
And doing things with that offense. Now, your start of the week was
Kevin White.
I
like him. I'm flexing him.
A ton of targets last week. So there is, like you said, there's some fantasy boom opportunities here. The weather's going to be good in Chicago, and both defenses have struggled this year. The only other name I want to bring up, I want to know your rest of season opinion about Marvin Jones, because right now he is the #1 wide receiver through 3 weeks. We know how those things will change quickly at this point in the season. But do you buy into Marvin Jones as a top 10 wide receiver rest of season?
I'm close, but I know that the Lions have had a very nice opening schedule of bad defenses, and Stafford has been taking advantage of that, and Marvin Jones as well. So when the tough games start coming, that's what I want to see with Marvin Jones. I'm not willing to call him top 10 yet.
I agree. He's top 15. But the truth is that this season he doesn't have a whole lot of tough games. I mean, week 6 he's got LA.
Tougher.
Week 10 he's on a bye, so I don't think he does good.
Not as good.
I mean, Minnesota.
He's got Minnesota
9,
twice, right?
Yes, Minnesota week 9 and week 12
okay.
in division, and then the rest is all matchups I would play him. I see him as a top 15.
All right,
He's got the Packers coming up too, and the Packers have been okay on defense.
Yeah, they've been pretty good.
They've been okay at running, but they've been stopping the run. But since Sam Shields went out week 1, I don't think they've been that good with their passing D.
We're going to move on to the Broncos.
Sorry, real quick. Zach Miller, love him this week.
He's my start.
We're going to move on to the Broncos and the Buccaneers. Now, the Buccaneers offense has a lot of attractive pieces involved. They're on a journey to fantasy glory, but they're heading through the bog that is the Denver defense. And nobody can walk in mud that deep. They are going to face a defense that is 4th against the pass, that has not given up to fantasy wide receivers. It's been a difficult road against the Denver defense. So can Evans overcome this? Is there any chance you would ever take him out of your lineup? Because I feel like the regret would be so great.
Evans is unbenchable right now. Look, I'm comparing this game for the Buccaneers. This is I don't know if Andy will fully get on board with this reference, but this is the Princess Bride, and they are going through the fire swamp right now.
I've seen the movie.
Well, but can you understand the fire swamp reference?
Sure, I brought up the swamp reference. I think I can understand.
Right, but that's the fire swamp. You have the rodents of unusual size.
Yes.
You have the lightning stand. There's all sorts of problems going up against the Denver defense. But Mike Evans, I think, has enough that he is unbenchable. Like I said, he can still get it done. You're not going to get top 5 performance likely, but
he is completely benchable to me.
Oh no!
Now that doesn't mean I'm benching
way.
him.
No,
that doesn't.
Evans or Pryor?
I would take Pryor.
I'll take Evans.
Okay.
Let me make
sure Evans or Fuller?
I would take Evans in that situation. Let me clarify what I mean by he is completely benchable to me. Mike Evans, he has a very big history of being a guy that comes up with just complete dud games. Right? Last year and the year before, both years he was a great wide receiver too. He produced for fantasy, but he had plenty of games where he just does not show up. And if I'm going to predict a game to not show up, it's going to be against the Denver D. Now, I'm still starting him in probably most situations because, like Mike's saying, he's been on fire. He's such a big target. Look, Jameis Winston was annihilated against the Arizona Cardinals, and Mike Evans was fine. He had a great game. He had the touchdown, so it can happen here. But my point is, if I have Deshaun Jackson and Allen Robinson and or a Demaryius Thomas, or
sure,
even
in this game, Demaryius Thomas.
Yeah, I'm starting Demaryius Thomas over Mike Evans. So that's what I'm saying. I think there are lineups where you might have guys that I'm willing to start if you've got better options.
We also should talk about Demaryius and Emmanuel Sanders, who both ate to their full last week. I think they have good games again this week myself. You also have C.J. Anderson and Charles Sims. Is there a narrative there you want to discuss?
I think it's C.J. Anderson time this week, personally.
The Bucs D has allowed 40-plus yards on 6 of their 60 receptions, which is nearly last in the league. So there is big play potential for those wide receivers. The stuff we saw from last week. All right, let's move on to the Rams. The Cardinals. The Cardinals have not had a very good season thus far. They're 1-2, but they are 8-point favorites at home against the Rams this week in a lower over-under type of game. So let's talk fantasy-wise. Even if they're favored, even if this game's at home, is their upside capped by this Rams defense? And by they, I mean
the Cardinals.
David Johnson, Carson Palmer, Larry Fitzgerald, Michael Floyd, John Brown.
It's possible, but the Cardinals at home have shown that any given week, a great defense can come in and they can explode. So I'm not afraid of the Rams defense if I have Cardinal players. I like Palmer this week. Look, last week was terrible for Carson Palmer. The 2 weeks before that, great. I mean, a very strong fantasy performance for him. David Johnson every single week. Larry Fitzgerald every single week. The question for me for the Cardinals offense becomes, would you start a Michael Floyd? Would you start John Brown? I don't know where I fall on these guys. I don't know if I'm willing to start them with wide receiver 2 confidence.
When it comes to Michael Floyd, I'm not. The fact that he's missed practice this week and you don't know how things are going in a lower scoring game. I think he has been very touchdown. He's had his games with over 100 yards, but really where you've got your value out of Michael Floyd is usually his red zone looks and his touchdowns. John Brown, I would actually rather start John Brown than Michael Floyd in this game. But I think that their offense is capped in the sense that, if you look at my rankings the last few weeks, I've had Larry Fitzgerald essentially as a wide receiver 1. I've got him at, 20 this week because I just don't think that, I agree with Vegas. I don't think this is going to be a high-scoring game.
I would flex John Brown myself. Now, Tavon Austin on the other side, the only wide receiver worth really talking about. I know Kenny Britt's made a few splashes, but last week it was Brian Quick, so I don't think you can count on one of those deep guys. Now, Tavon Austin has had 36% of the target share on that team. Very large.
That's really high for people that don't know. Maybe that sounds low, but 36% is enormous.
Yeah, so you're not going to have a goose egg with Tavon Austin. Problem is you're running up against the Cardinals defense that's 6th against the pass. They're going to have to be creative on offense with a number of different options. To me, Gurley's really the only start in this game. Do you guys disagree?
Nope.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't want to start.
You guys,
Austin has 5 receptions, 5 receptions, 4 receptions. Those are decent numbers. I just don't ever feel good about starting him.
The last question for you, Jason, because you snagged Carson Palmer off the waiver wire in a league of record yesterday. He's only completed 57% of his passes thus far this season, making him 31st of 35 qualified quarterbacks, according to the remarkable stats there. So, with confidence, are you starting Carson Palmer this week?
With confidence, I am benching Carson Palmer this week. And that's not to say that you have to. He's my 14th ranked quarterback. So if there's not better options on waivers, but I'll give you a perfect example, and it would be hard to do, but I would do it in my personal league. So I'm willing to share. I would rather have Brian Hoyer this week than Carson Palmer.
Wow.
That's bold.
That is. All right, let's talk about the Saints and the Chargers. This game's in San Diego with a monster over-under. Maybe the highest I've seen this year. Do you guys remember one higher than 53.5?
I believe there's been another 53.5, but that is at least tied.
So let's cut to the chase here. You've got Drew Brees now traveling on the road against my number 3 ranked quarterback this week, Phillip Rivers.
I feel like number 3 and number 4, your quarterback rank, because you can kind of just block them off and say reserved for whoever's playing the Saints.
Right. It's just the opponent of
like
the Saints.
This is VIP. Are you playing the Saints? Then you're not allowed here.
Now, I have Brees as number 6. So, I mean, head-to-head, I have Rivers over Brees in this matchup. Rivers plays better at home. Brees plays better at home, and he's on the road. And look, I mean, it's amazing sometimes when you look at this. Jason was marveling at it. When you look at what Rivers is throwing to, and you say, hey, it's no Gates, no Keenan Allen, no Danny Woodhead. You get to throw to Travis Benjamin and Tyrell Williams.
That's why Travis Benjamin is my start of the week this week.
Yeah, because he's playing the Saints defense, and the Saints running defense is dead last. Passing defense is 25th. It's a hodgepodge of guys kind of hacked together right now with the injuries they have. So, fantasy bonanza, as Adam Azer would say.
It certainly looks like it. Will give the it's Drew Brees on the road, so he can always fall on his face. But I like it this week. I like starting almost everyone in this game. I want to take a closer look at the tight end battle here. You got Coby Fleener, who maybe he awoke last week, as Andy put it. And you have Hunter Henry, who had a great game, fantasy purpose. I know he fumbled. That stinks for real NFL, but we like the fantasy numbers. And I like both of these guys. I think, but would you start Fleener or would you start Henry if you're looking at that particular situation?
I love Fleener
this
week.
It's Fleener without question to me.
Andy's start of the week is Fleener, and I think for good reason. There are 2 really good cover corners for the Chargers, and because the rest of their defense is so bad, sometimes you just assume that the Chargers defense stinks, but they've actually done a good job against several of top wide receivers. This last week they were torched by T.Y. Hilton.
Whoa! Breaking news.
That literally physically startled me.
I was kind of trying to do that in the middle of a sentence just for the startle factor. Sammy Watkins officially declared out.
Oh, nailed it.
Sorry.
Yeah, but
good luck finding your point again.
With their 2 good cover corners, I'm just saying that I think Fleener is a good matchup in a high-scoring game. I also think that assuming Willie Snead plays, it's ironic, but I think if Willie Snead plays, you're going to have value out of Michael Thomas again this week. I would be fine starting Michael Thomas.
You're saying flex. Either way, whether Thomas is
either
the 2 or the 3.
Either way, he's going to be okay because if he's the 2, he'll get more targets. If he's the 3, he'll have easier coverage.
I want to see Coby Fleener produce while Willie Snead is playing. That's what I want to see.
This would be the game for that to happen, I think.
Hugh Jackson's comments on Josh Gordon. We're moving on. We need to close that chapter right now.
Yep.
So. They can't – I mean, I was saying this to someone else. They can't have a roster spot filled. So as soon as, his suspension's about to be lifted or indefinite, so you cut him either way.
Cowboys, 49ers, 45.5-point over-under. 49ers are dogs at home by 2.5 points. Dez Bryant, we think he'll be out of the equation here. To me, the biggest beneficiary there is a combination of Jason Witten and Cole
Beasley.
Cole Beasley.
Yes.
Heart ring in training. So, to me, do you start? I would start Cole Beasley. If you didn't have a better option, I'd start him in a flex, and I would be fine with it. He's still putting up 6, 7, 8 catches a game, PPR machine.
I'm fully on board. I'm flexing Cole Beasley. If you're in a PPR and Cole Beasley's on your waiver wire, what are you doing with your life? Pay attention to what Cole Beasley has done.
You know what's nice about Beasley? Is if you sign him off of waivers, you actually don't have to put him on your bench or on your roster. You can put him in your pocket. You have one pocket. If your league supports a pocket spot, Sproles, Beasley, these guys are eligible. No?
Yeah, in a full PPR, I agree. I probably don't share the same enthusiasm. Let's say you're in a half point, right, where you get some value. I think Cole Beasley is an asset that can be flexed. I've got him ranked 30th, but there are plenty of guys that are also Tyrell Williams, for instance. Give me Tyrell Williams over Cole Beasley, but he should be rostered, especially if you are in a PPR.
Yeah, there are a handful of guys when we do our rankings on Wednesday and Thursday. I make notes on the side that says, pay attention to these guys for the remainder of the week because of how things shake out. He's a beneficiary of Dez's targets going away. There are certain players that fit that category. So I would keep my eyes on him.
In our league format, he's had double-digit points every week.
Right. I mean, I
should have been playing Cole Beasley.
He's still on waivers.
He is not.
Right?
He got picked up
Today?
Yep.
Oh.
Gabe, nice move, Gabe.
Pocket spot?
Gabe's playing against me.
He's going to play Cole Beasley against you, and your doubt for him is going to burn in your face.
Nope. I got Mike Nugent. I'm good.
Oh.
Kickers
Not
rule.
only was Cole Beasley signed in our league, Cole Beasley was signed for $3 of a fab.
Oh, yeah.
Very interesting.
I like
Very interesting.
All right. Are there other – so you got Jason Witten, Cole Beasley. They're going to get targets.
Will you start Dak Prescott this week?
No, I don't.
No.
Okay.
I think he could be okay. I'm not saying he's going to bomb and be the worst, but he doesn't have Dez. This isn't a game that I think is going to be very – high scoring unless there's some early defensive touchdowns and people have to start airing it out. I just think the game script will probably make this less of a fantasy benefit for Dak.
We all have Dak in that 18 to 20 range in standard leagues, so I think that says it all right there. Jason, I'm sorry to interrupt you. What were you saying about the matchups in this game? Were you bringing somebody else up?
I was actually negating everyone else. I think you've got Witten and you've got Beasley. Terrence Williams, he could have a good game, but you're not going to start him because you just never know when that's going to be. So really Witten and Beasley, and then, of course, you are definitely going to be starting Ezekiel Elliott. And that's from the Broncos.
And on the other –
from the Cowboys.
Yeah, I don't start very many Broncos in this game. On the other side is Carlos Hyde to me. He's my start of the week, and you got to get him in there.
That's
it. Hey, look, the 49ers have run the ball on 49.2% of plays, only behind Dallas and one other team. So this is a game where you'll see some runs. I mean, I think you'll see opportunity is what I mean. Now, Sunday night football game, the Chiefs take on the Steelers. Really curious about how this game's going to shake out. This game's in Pittsburgh. Look, Mike Tomlin's face was not pretty when that game shook out last week.
Against Philly?
Yeah, they never got things right in that game against Philly, and Tomlin looked like he was losing his mind.
As he should have.
So they get right here? Lev Bell's back, baby.
Lev Bell's back. You're at home. You're against the Chiefs, who have been they are not the Chiefs that we remember from last year. Le'Veon Bell is going to eat and go to the Golden Corral so he can eat some more.
Then throw up.
Yeah, throw up so he can eat some more. It's going to be nonstop for Le'Veon Bell. I love him, and I love Spencer Ware in this game as well. I know that the Steelers defense, their rushing defense, they're fourth in the league right now, but Spencer Ware has just shown how dominant he can be. And now you throw in the factor of Char West and might not even be there to siphon a couple of snaps that he had been getting. So I like the running backs. This is a fantastic matchup for me.
Jason?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that. I definitely think that Le'Veon Bell, I mean, there's no owner in the world that's not going to start Le'Veon Bell when he comes. It's interesting to me, obviously they played Doug Peterson, who was kind of Andy Reid's protege last week. I think they had a really great game plan. Now they play probably a better team in the Kansas City.
Who had a great game plan?
The Eagles had a great game plan.
Peterson.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, Coach Peterson for the Eagles.
When you said they played him.
Had a really good game plan against the Steelers last week. I expect this, it's 47 points is the over-under, which is decently high. I would take the under. I'm not thrilled about assets here other than Le'Veon Bell. Nobody really excites me in a like, this is not one of those games where I'm going, I have to start Jeremy Maclin. I have to start obviously Antonio Brown.
To me, Alex Smith and Maclin have upside in this game because I think that the Chiefs defense is not going to do what they do, which is to pretty much slow the game down, run the ball with Spencer Ware. I think the Steelers put up points at home, and I think this forces Smith and Maclin and Kelsey into roles where I'm pretty comfortable starting all of those guys.
An interesting
and the Steelers are 31st against the pass so far.
Yeah, an interesting factoid here for Spencer Ware. He's rushed for 10 or more yards on 9 of his 41 carries. I mean, that ranks him extremely high in the NFL for percentage-wise of huge runs.
You just have to watch him. I mean, the difference between him and Char West is night and day.
Here's where things get weird because the Steelers' defense, they rank well for rushing defense. However, the Steelers have allowed rushes of 10 or more yards on 9 of 59 carries, which ranks them that's 15% of the time. So Ware's busting off huge runs, and the Steelers are allowing huge runs. I like Spencer Ware.
Yeah. All right.
Big Ben, I'm just throwing this out there. Big Ben likes to throw interceptions. Kansas City last week what did they have, 6 interceptions?
I don't think he likes to throw interceptions.
I think history says that he doesn't hate it. I'm sure he doesn't enjoy it, but he certainly has a habit. Look, we all have some habits we can't quit.
He's impartial.
Follow up on the Sammy Watkins news. There were some reports that they have serious concerns about the foot and the ability for him to move on for the rest of the season. Officially declared out
forever.
A lot of people asked me yesterday when I was pumping up Pryor last night. Multiple people asked me, would you trade Sammy Watkins for him? And I said, absolutely.
Yeah, I would have as well.
As long as it's a redraft. I don't know. In a dynasty, I probably wouldn't. Giants take on the Vikings on Monday Night Football. This vicious, incredibly well-coached defense for the Vikings going up against what I think has been a disappointing offense thus far because I expected more out of Eli Manning from a production touchdown standpoint. Yes, he's had the yards, but it's not been enough. You have an injured Rashad Jennings. Beckham Jr. has been kind of I don't know,
beaten up.
Not long for the end zone. I mean, he hasn't gotten into the end zone this year, right?
Yeah, 3 weeks in, no
everyone's
touchdown.
Frustrated with that, kind of like how they were before last week with Allen Robinson, where you're like, I paid a lot for you, Mr. Odell. Why aren't you scoring touchdowns? He had 1 drop. Now, the thing I do like about Shepard and Cruz and Beckham Jr. is that the tight ends have not been involved this year. Donnell and Ty haven't really been involved. Is this a game, though, that you can even count on any of these guys? I mean, the Vikings have been so good. Now they're at home.
Yeah, that's brutal against the Vikings defense. They might just have the best overall cohesive defense in the league.
$53 a fab.
Well, we got an update for the Foot Clan. Our friend Nick put in $53, and he said he meant to go 35, and I think he just fat thumbed it. So
are they worth 35?
Probably not, but his team is very strong, and he said this is the piece that takes me Sylvester Stallone over the top.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to start Odell Beckham. If he has a bad week, you're going to trade for Odell Beckham. I think he has looked great this year. He just hasn't.
He's making people look silly when he's got the ball in his hands.
Yeah, there's nothing that I've seen that make me think he's anything but what we drafted. Just hasn't broke his way. You've got weird touchdowns this year for the Giants from Orleans Darkwind. Orleans
Start over, Jason. Slow down.
Shane Vereen. You've had those kind of I feel like they're vulturing Eli's touchdowns or vulturing Odell's touchdowns. I don't think it's going to happen this week. You got no Vereen. You've got, hopefully, no Rashad Jennings.
We have Darkwa at 31 in our consensus rankings this week.
Well, he's going to be the clear starter, but against a terrible matchup.
Yeah, that makes it very, very difficult for him. I mean, look at last week. The clear starter of Asiata or McKinnon, they struggled. Even though they won that game, those guys struggled against that Carolina defense. So matchups, they play a big role in what you're doing there.
I like Diggs. I'll throw it out there. I like him at home. The Giants' run defense is legit, but their pass defense is beatable. So I like Diggs.
Do you start
come back?
Eli Manning or just find a better option?
I would find a better option personally.
I would as well.
Pryor or Diggs?
Ooh,
Pryor.
That's a very good question. I want to actually see what I statted out for that. So I have Pryor at 17, and I have Diggs at 14. So I would go Diggs.
So Pryor or Shepard?
Pryor.
Oh, definitely Pryor there.
Okay. All right, we'll see.
Shepard.
So do you start the Vikings defense with confidence again in this
Yes.
game? Because even though they're playing a team that can put points on the board?
Yeah, I do. I personally, at home, the Vikings defense are averaging a sack. Basically every 8 pass attempts are getting a sack. I mean, that's ridiculous for fantasy scoring.
All right, let's move on. We're going to talk to Chris Meaney of the Fantasy Sports Network.
The Daily Dose.
The fantasy footballers are enthusiastic to bring in the leanest, the meanest, the DFS machinist, Chris Meaney from the Fantasy Sports Network. How are you doing today, my friend?
That was nice. That just come to you or what?
Yeah, that's off the dome. That's how I roll over here, Chris. You know it. I don't prepare.
That's beauty, man. I like that a lot.
All right, so let's get into the FanDuel plays of the week. What are you doing at the quarterback position? Are you pinching the pennies? Are you paying up? What are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, Cam Newton, you see him at the top there, $9,300. The next price guy is Drew Brees at $86. But, I mean, I'm willing to spend up on Cam, especially he's probably a little bit ticked off that he didn't get anything done against the Vikings. This is a really nice matchup against the Falcons. I mean, the Falcons have already allowed 936 yards through the air. I mean, that's the fourth most in football. They've given up the second most fantasy points per game to quarterbacks. I like Cam Newton a lot. I'm willing to pay up for him. And same with Drew Brees. I mean, the Chargers are pretty leaky as well, fifth most to quarterbacks. And on the other side of that, Phillip Rivers. I mean, those are the top three price guys. They're all pretty chalky, but they're all really, really safe in terms of cash, head-to-head, 50-50s. You want to go into a tournament, maybe you want to be a little bit different. Matthew Stafford has just been unbelievable. He gets a leaky Bears secondary as well. Just really nice stuff from him so far this season. Simeon, $7,400. He did it against the Bengals. I don't expect him to throw for 4 touchdowns over 300 yards, but much like all these other defenses, I mean, the Bucs have given up 891 through the air. That's the sixth most. They're averaging, allowing the sixth most fantasy points per game to quarterbacks. So I don't mind rolling out Simeon at $7,400. Flacco, $7,700. Up against Oakland as well. So just like a lot of teams to pick on. There's some juicy matchups out there at the quarterback position.
Love it. Moving on to the running backs. What's your outlook for this week? What's your strategy?
Yeah, this week I don't think you really have to spend up. I mean, David Johnson's always nice. I'm sure Le'Veon Bell, people are going to want to get Bell in there. The first game back, what to expect. I'm sure he's going to touch the ball a lot. Tomlin's already said that. Lamar Miller's kind of frustrated people, so I think he could be a little bit of a contrarian play. The Titans have just allowed 5.1 yards per carry. I know Miller is getting a lot of touches. He just hasn't found the end zone. A little bit safer, though, down the road. I mean, in terms of pricing, Ezekiel Elliott, $8,100 against San Fran. Even on the flip side of that, with Carlos Hyde, San Fran they can't move the ball. They can't throw the ball. They can't get anything done. Dallas has allowed some rushing yards. $6,800. Carlos Hyde is really nice. But my favorite, I guess, in just this game between the Saints and the Chargers, and people think that you can't have a quarterback and a running back from the same team. And then on a FanDuel, I mean, the millionaire a couple weeks into last year to start the season, people had the quarterback and the running back, so I'm fine with that. Melvin Gordon at $7,600 against the Saints. You saw what Atlanta was able to do against them last week. The run game, I mean, Freeman and Coleman were both involved. Ingram, $6,800 against the Chargers. Again, these teams they're just not very good against the run. The Saints allowing the most points to running backs. And even the Chargers, the seventh most points to running backs per game from a fantasy standpoint. So I'm really in on both of those backs. And then LeGarrette Blount, this will probably be the last week for LeGarrette Blount to just get a ton of touches. Only averaged 13 per game with Brady last season, averaging 25 per game right now over the first three. He's probably going to get a lot of play this weekend as well against the Bills.
Moving over to the wide receivers, do you have anybody you're not looking just chalk? Those middle guys, maybe save a little bit of the money. Do you have anybody that comes to mind?
Yeah, I mean, again, with Sanders going back to Denver, $6,900. Mike Wallace, $6,700 against the Raiders. If you want to go a little bit cheaper against the Raiders, they haven't been able to cover anybody. Steve Smith, $6,100. I mean, you got to keep in mind, FanDuel getting half a point per catch. So I noticed Steve Smith is getting more involved. Obviously we all know he's an old man, but coming off that Achilles injury, he's starting to find himself in a little bit of a groove. Travis Benjamin still pretty cheap, $6,600 against the Saints. Tyrell Williams, again, $64. Kevin White's a little bit cheaper. Maybe hard to trust in a cash game, but not bad tournament. Brian Hoyer targeted him a lot, and I expect Chicago to be down in that game and going to try to play catch up a little bit. So I don't mind that play at all. Those guys are just fairly cheap. And for more expensive, I mean, Kelvin Benjamin was just held without anything last week, and the Falcons, they can't cover anybody. As I mentioned, second most to quarterbacks, a lot of points given up to wide receivers as well. So Kelvin Benjamin, you want to pay up $7,700. And Marvin Jones, again, this guy's fantastic. He's got certainly a wicked rapport with Stafford.
All right, strap on your eco suit, your biohazard pants, because we have to once again wade through the toxic mess that are the tight ends. Do you have anybody at all that you even like remotely besides the tops, the Reed, the Olsen? Anybody at all?
Yeah, I know, right? Olsen is. I think people just have to pay up for Olsen. This position, as you mentioned, we talked about it last week. It's just it's just so awful. It's so bad. But Zach Miller, $5,000. He had 2 touchdowns last week. Detroit has allowed 5 touchdowns to tight end so far this season, so maybe there's just something there. And the Falcons, as I mentioned, four touchdowns allowed to tight ends. They just can't cover anyone. So I think that maybe you just pay up for this position. But again, keep an eye on Gates. Like, does Gates suit up? Because Hunter Henry played every single snap. I know he had a fumble, but he's the bare minimum on FanDuel. He's $4,500 against the Saints. It's a wicked matchup for him. And so if there's no Gates, again, I expect Hunter Henry to be involved. 5 targets, 5 grabs. That fumble kind of hurt him a little bit, but I wouldn't be worried about that. He's a rookie. He's going to be involved in this game, especially with no Gates. So I think you can save up at the position, but if you're not willing to and you want to get somebody, just pay up for Greg Olsen this week.
It's a bizarre world here. We're in week 4, and we are with you that this Detroit-Chicago matchup is so intriguing that we kind of want to play all the Bears too. So, I mean, that's a wacky world we're living in right now where we're throwing up Chicago for serious fantasy points. So finally, let's touch on the defenses. Do you got anybody who's a sneaky play?
Yeah, not really. I mean, sneaky. I've just been finding that so far this year. I mean, if you pay up for the D, the Vikings, you're not going to get them on certain contests because Monday, but just pay up. I mean, Arizona, Case Keenum, I know he's $5,300, but the Denver Broncos and Jameis Winston, I mean, he's up on the rise. He targets Mike Evans a lot. Evans is nice, but Denver is just, I mean, look at their last few games. I mean, they've had Cam Newton twice. They've had Luck. They've just been so dominant against top-tier quarterbacks that Winston is so inaccurate, willing to throw the picks. I mean, he's thrown the ball over 100 times in his past 2 games. I don't think that's what they want to do against a Denver team, but they may not have a choice. So, I mean, the Broncos, I'm just all in on the Broncos and just pay up for those. I'm just looking down the list here, and there's just not a whole lot that I really like. I mean, Washington seems like an okay play against Cleveland, $4,600. It's not too bad. But other than that, I think I would just really pay up at the defense position, just roll with Broncos. I mean, they just seem so safe.
There it is. Chris Meaney from the Fantasy Sports Network, always bringing us the sweet FanDuel plays of the week. I appreciate it, Chris. We will talk to you next week.
Thanks for having me, guys. Good luck to everyone out there.
We thank Chris Meaney for joining us, and I'll tell you what. That was such a great appearance that I'm actually going to put it into the YouTube video. If you so last week, Brooks, who's our production assistant coordinator, who normally does the actual kind of the final run through of the video when it goes up. Of course, this is the first day he's ever met. He had a vacation day, and I took over. And, man, did I take over well, right? I left
and I think
Chris Meaney out of the video.
I think the lesson to be learned is how dare you, Brooks?
That's where I was
Take
leaning.
your vacation.
Yeah.
I mean,
come on.
What's vacation? By the way, next week I'll be gone a couple days for vacation. Jason will be taking over. So who knows what the video looks like.
Oh, yeah. You're going to get some wacky things
you're probably going to get
in there.
4 minutes of the show and then 18 minutes of Braveheart will be cut into it.
Upgrade. Look, I think we got it.
Did you put William Wallace on top of the DeLorean?
He is riding the DeLorean.
In the
He's got to go back to his time.
Oh, my goodness. You've made a little scene.
Yeah.
He's driving right into Todd Gurley's head. This is really good podcasting, right?
Oh, yeah. Good audio.
Referencing all of the objects in the studio. Anyways, that's it for today's show. Good luck this weekend. Again, Mike will be on Periscope.
We're falling apart.
Periscope on Sunday morning. And definitely check out the community at jointhefoot.com because we'll be on there all weekend long answering priority questions, doing things like that. And very excited. We're also, if you're a member of Join the Foot, guess what we're doing now?
What are we doing?
We're adding a Sunday morning.
I love Michael Keaton.
A Sunday morning rundown of all the ins, the outs, the inactives, everything going on, all the rumors, so you have last-minute updates. And make sure when you're referencing our rankings, do a little last-minute check on Saturday night, Sunday morning. We update things down to the minute. So if we get an update about something that's going on, it may make a big impact, like, I don't know, Delaney Walker being declared out last week and things like that. So make sure you tune in there. We appreciate you listening to the show, supporting the show.
Hey, shout out to Fantasy Jocks. Get your trophies, get your belts, all your stuff that winners need with the promo code footballers at fantasyjocks.com. Thank you. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.